The following is my quick thoughts on The Singer's Gun by Emily St. John Mandel. The Singer's Gun follows the story of Anton Waker, a man who is caught up in a scheme from his past, and Eleanor, his secretary, who is also more than meets the eye.
She's not a transformer, in case you were wondering that.
The story of The Singer's Gun is a simple story of people making mistakes in their past and being forced to face the consequences of those decisions. Now, an easy criticism of The Singer's Gun and other works by Emily St. John Mandel that I've seen online are that it doesn't really have a plot, and that's wrong. There is a plot there, it's just in the background. It's not very important. The actual events of the story, the general A to B, are revealed to the reader through a series of flashbacks and inner stories sort of interconnected with the main plot. So it doesn't really follow a linear pattern, and I think that's what puts some people off, saying that there's no plot, because there's not a really easy timeline chain of events that you can follow. You sort of have to think about it a little bit more and piece things together yourself, which is kind of the point. It's kind of a mystery in that way. What is actually really clever about this approach, especially in this book, is that it really ties in well with the themes that the story is presenting. You're not given all of the information up front, and what you read in chapter 1 is very much recontextualized throughout the story as we gain more information and we can understand a bit better what was going on there. And that is the same with the characters in the story. The characters are presented in one way initially, and then we learn a little bit more about them, and it sort of changes our minds about the situation and them as people. Speaking of the characters, it's actually quite difficult to point to any one particular character in this book and say, he's the good guy, he's definitely the good guy, because everyone in this book is in their own way a bit of a scumbag. Everyone is sort of out for themselves, they've got very selfish motivations, and they're all broody and moody and all of these negative emotions and traits for these characters, and there's very few sort of instances where you can go, he's definitely the good guy, I want him to win. Because in a way you don't want any of them to win, because they're terrible people. And that puts a lot of people off as well, from what I've seen online. People find it hard to relate to the characters, they don't want to root for them, they don't like these people. But from my personal opinion, I don't think that you need to like the characters in a book to want them to succeed. I mean, it's an interesting story and it explores interesting ideas and feelings and emotions, and that's sort of what the book's going for, rather than making you go, I really want Superman to win by punching the Batman in the face. I've tried to explain in the past why I like the works of Emily St. John Mandel, and surprisingly, even to myself, it's been quite difficult to explain. On the surface, you would think there's not that much to like about it. I mean, like I've said, the plot isn't front and center, it doesn't really follow a strict structure, it's kind of hard to follow in a way. You've got characters that are unlikable and they're terrible people, maybe you don't want them to succeed, you know, that puts a lot of people off if they're interested in reading, you know, a straightforward story about good guys versus bad guys, or at least someone they can like fighting someone they don't like, you know. But this is a sort of story, the only way I can really explain it, there's a video that Bookie Laura did recently, which was her wrap-up for February. She read Station 11 and said, I couldn't remember what happened in the story shortly after I read it. And I agree with that opinion. It's sort of difficult to grip onto the story in The Singer's Gun, just because of the way it's told in fragmented segments. Things will come back to you. You can't sort of think in your head, you know, like you would see a film. You can't think, oh, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, because it's disjointed and fragmented. It's a little bit all over the place. So sort of things will come back to you in flashes, but the thing that is so good about them, I think, is they're very dreamlike, in that it's very difficult to hold on to a tangible memory from the book. You know, to point out a plot point and say, this is a moment I thought was really good, but it's the general feeling that it invokes when you think about it as a whole, which sticks with you. You know, it's very intangible in the way that it's good, but it is good. I really don't know what I'm saying. It sounds like weird philosophy nonsense that I've made up, but that's just how I feel, and that's why reviews are subjective, I suppose. So overall, I obviously really enjoyed The Singer's Gun. I rated it 5 stars on Goodreads, which does mean I would recommend it to pretty much anyone, but I must add the caveat that it's obviously going to be a bit of a love-hate relationship with it. If you read it and you really are interested in that sort of thing, you'll probably end up really loving it like I did. And if you read it and you think, oh my god, these characters are awful and nothing's happening in this book, then you're going to be one of those that probably hates it, and that's okay. We can all get along together in harmony